Good morning and welcome. You're watching Good Morning Sri Lanka. Today is the 21st of May 2012 and we have an exciting show lined up for you. We're going to talk about a much anticipated Gracians Awards, and we have two of the shortlisted 5 finalists, and we're going to talk with them about how they got to do what they're doing and also what inspires them. But also at the same time, we're going to talk about some very important news from around the world. The Olympics is always close to our hearts as it's getting close. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But also one of the most talked about events of this week, Facebook. As great IPO and what happened with that. We'll be talking about all of that very soon. But one of the aspects when we're talking about Facebook was that Mark Zuckerberg's company finally decided to have an IPO where they released out, and it happened outdoors at the Facebook main headquarters. And it didn't go as well as they would have planned. At the end of it, it was going for about $30 a share. And people were trying to evaluate what was going on because there was supposed to be more of a demand for it. But one of the main reasons has been the fact that Facebook is still very conservative when it comes to advertising. They want to make sure that it continues to be user-friendly, and they stick to their strength, which is the fact that they have a huge base of individuals and people passionate about it, and advertising just might ruin it. But investors would wish there was more advertising and more money in it, and therefore it didn't go as great, but still it's doing pretty good at $30 a share on Facebook. We also are going to talk about some very important aspects, and every week when we start off we have a question of the week. And the question of this week is the fact of, as the Olympics is getting closer, there are certain countries that have an amazingly strong delegation that's supposed to do well. In fact, historically, countries that have been almost like the hegemon or dominating politically have also been able to dominate on the field. So the question is, will Beijing, the issues of Beijing and how they really performed at the Beijing Olympics continue as China is becoming more of a superpower in this year's London 2012 Olympics? But the question we want to talk to you is, talking back in Sri Lanka's situation, we have only 39 athletes who have qualified for the Olympics representing Sri Lanka. That is not the ideal. However, the question is, why do you think it's only 39? And how could it be better? What are your suggestions? You could definitely write to us about your concerns or the fact that you're encouraged that there are 39 Sri Lankans who have qualified. It has been more in the past. However, you can let us know your thoughts on our Facebook page on Good Morning Sri Lanka. And also you can share your comments on our usual SMS line, which we would have to you on our screen in a little bit. So those are a few things coming up. But we're very excited, as I said at the beginning of the show, that we do have two of the contestants, the shortlisted 5 out of the 5. We've got 2 of them on the studio today. We'll talk to them about their passion for writing, how they got started, and how they've come so far. And maybe it'll be an inspiration to you. If you've always wanted to, maybe it's time that you start. This prestigious award, the Gracian Awards, it's closing in to see who might be this year's winner. Obviously, last year's Gracian Award winner went really far with an amazing book. Many of the people have read it, and when I've started reading it, it's really hard to put it down. The book is Chinaman, The Legend of Pradeep Matthew by Shehan Karunatila. And he's not only won in Sri Lanka, but the amount of respect and critical acclaim it's receiving in the region and also in the world is pretty impressive. And so we would like to encourage you to check that out, Chinaman, The Legend of Pradeep Matthew. And that was another thing. But anyway, like we said, we're excited to talk to our guests today. And we hope you're enjoying it as well. Also on talking about some of the sports action, the IPL is heating up. We finally have the top 4 teams that qualified after grueling 16 matches each. And we now have the Chennai Super Kings also making it, the last year's champions. We've got Mumbai Indians, and then, of course, Kolkata Knight Riders and the Delhi Daredevils. Whatever your favorite team is, it's down to 4. We'll see how it goes. You're watching Good Morning Sri Lanka. We'll be right back with much, much more. Welcome back. Once again, we want to thank you for joining us on Good Morning Sri Lanka. Today is an exciting day. Yes, it is the beginning of a new week. But for those of you who just joined us, when we started the show, we promised you that we'll be talking to 2 guests who have been shortlisted on the top 5 to be contesting for the Gracian Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great joy and a privilege to welcome Miriam and Charulata to the show. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
All right, so before we begin, for those of our guests who may not know what the Gratian Awards is all about and how significant it is for us here in Sri Lanka, would one of you like to take a dab at that?
Okay, well, the Gratian was set up by Michael Ondaatje. He's a Sri Lankan-born Canadian citizen now, but he wrote a book called The English Patient, which won the Booker Prize.
Yes.
Yeah.
In 92, I think.
Yeah.
In 92.
In 1992, yes. So with that money, he set up the Gratian Trust here after his mother Doris Gratian, and it is awarded to Sri Lankan writers, Sri Lankan residents and citizens who are writing in English. So that's basically it. And
that's a perfect summary, and it has turned out to become a very prestigious and sort of award, and has been producing quite many writers and even inspiring many to write. So let's begin. Charla, just from you itself, what was this journey like for you? How did you, have you been writing for a while? Is this a passion, a hobby, and how did you get involved?
Well, it's certainly a passion, true, and it's my favorite hobby. And I have been writing poetry since I was a child. Both my parents being writers, I was like, it was natural for me to just, start scribbling. So I never thought of writing a book, and I never did write a book. This is the first time I ever wrote a book. So, and why I started writing a book was because when my own father passed away, I found it really difficult to cope with his death, and I just sat down and started writing all the memories and the feelings I had for him and our relationship, and that was the beginning of the book. So it just kind of flowed from there, and that was it.
Hobby and a passion now finally coming to fruition.
Oh, yeah.
Miriam, what has your story been like? Have you been writing for a while, and if so, how did it all start?
Well, I started when I was a child. I used to write in school and stuff like that, and it turned out pretty well. I enjoyed writing. And I used to write to the British Council, and I got some awards and stuff like that, and I did stop at 15, like I was just telling her. And last year I tried a story for the channels, and they received it very well. And I thought that maybe I should get into it again, and which is why the book came out within the year of 2011. Yeah. So that's what got me back into it. Yeah.
Both of you said something interesting about starting very young. It was a passion, and that you just enjoyed it, but you continue to work on it. I'm sure there are some young viewers watching in right now, and the importance of them at that young age to be doing what they're doing. How did that really, those formative years, how important were they when you were learning to write and you started writing off? Miriam, you want to?
I think when you're very young, you experiment with the styles, the type of stories you wish to write, and basically it is very important for you because you gain confidence at that stage. And also, as a child, you can afford to make mistakes and explore and, sort of understand that, okay, maybe this is something I would like to get into. And obviously you have time when you're younger. When you grow older, there are a lot more responsibilities and stuff like that. So when you're a child, you can read and you can write, and that's always a good thing. So if you want to really experiment during that stage, I think go ahead and try.
And Miriam, your book has been, short stories has been published and is in bookstores already.
Yes.
It's called Cry For Me A Little, Stories of the Soul. Tell a little bit about it. Why did you write this? And it seems a very intimate writing, and you get personal with the reader. Tell us about your book.
The story is, like I said, Stories of the Souls. It goes into very deep issues like gender, violence, ethnic conflict, human trafficking, ghost prisoners, and wildlife conservation, animal and human drug testing. It's more based on the emotional perspective. I'm trying to describe how these issues hit home more personally for a person as opposed to sort of, a very documentary sort of way. I mean, if you read the story, you become the reader, you become the protagonist. For example, some of the stories, the characters don't really have names, because I've tried to put you in that position and feed it. Because I think the best way that you could actually learn is through experience. And I mean, we're not really going to experience drug testing or something as a person, but then if you read the story, you become one with the character, and then you sort of understand it from that perspective. Because a lot of people don't really, for example, even wildlife conservation, my sister is into it like big time, and she was like, people don't really understand the animal's perspective. Well, if you read it from the perspective of being an animal, being a monkey or being a rhinoceros or being a lady being trafficked, you'd understand it better. So that's the purpose of the story, the emotional perspective.
It's very moving, and it's also trying the reader to empathize with the situation
Yes,
of everyone's going through. And especially in a world where we have so many topics and we can be detached. I think that's a very important aspect. Charlotta, you happen to be a physics teacher, and this is your first time in a literary attempt. And what really inspired you to write Autumn Leaves? And tell us a little bit about the book as well. Because obviously it seems like writing a book and being a physics teacher and all that seems to be two different things. How did this come to be?
Well, nothing about me adds up, that I'll tell you now up front. I'm a complete paradox. Even I don't even come near understanding myself. And about the book explores the relationship between a young girl and her father. So the situations are completely fictitious, but the emotions are very real. Those are the emotions I experienced with my own father. So when my father passed away, like I told you, it was so difficult for me to cope with it and to move forward from that point. So I was just stuck there in limbo, you know. I couldn't move forward with my life. So I just started writing down about him, about my feelings for him. And it kind of, I was telling Mariam that the story kind of just walked into my head, you know, in bits and pieces, not all together.